Rachel, we see you. All right, we're definitely going to get started. First, I would like to say good evening to everyone and welcome to our community briefing on the New York City tax lien sale. Definitely want to take this opportunity for everyone to definitely please introduce yourselves in chat, just your name, organization. This community briefing is not only this community briefing, we definitely want not only want to educate and inform, we want it to be engaging and also inspire you to action to join this movement to keep our properties in community hands. And each and every one of you that's on this community briefing plays such a vital and important role for this particular movement along those lines. Uh, Basically, as some may or may not know, Mayor Adams is holding a lien sale in May 2025. And this dynamic organization, a coalition of community-based organization has joined together and formed Abolish the Tax Lien Sale Coalition because we definitely seen the negative impacts this tax lien sale has on our community, especially communities of color. And this coalition is made up of 10 plus dynamic groups throughout New York City. And with that, for being a part of the fight for 4 plus years during the height of the pandemic, I want to see virtual hand claps all the way around. And if anything, give yourselves a hand clap. You can actually do that. There we go. Yeah, you could tell I just learned the new tech thing, multiple hand claps at the same time for the effect. Definitely. As I mentioned, our organizing led to the city council to enact major reforms to the lien sale, but we have not abolished this predatory policy yet. And I want to stop right there. As I learned from Paula, our dynamic community lawyer, policies, what do you call it? Policies, regulation, or legislation serves two purposes, modifying behaviors and directing the resources. And this present tax lien sale, which is a policy which was started by legislation, we see the impact of it negatively. So we as a group decided to push back and fight back to make sure that we have legislation that's more accommodating to our communities. And I definitely want to say, join us to learn more about how you can be a part of this fight. Think, plan, and act. The agenda for this evening, quite simply, is A, how does this system work? Many of you heard of the tax lien sale. Everyone heard of what the macro or the huge overview process is. But we're going to A, dig in a little bit deeper and allow for more information so you can share with your neighbors. We're going to point out who does it harm and how can you change it? How can we change it as well? And what can you do and I do to impact this change? And how do you and I get off the 2025 lien sale and help our community members if you're not on the lien sale? And we're going to talk about the action steps, which is very, very important as well. So what can you and I do? One, get your property off the lien sale list by filing one of several easy applications, or make sure the city is paying attention if your landlord is on the list. That means they are collecting rent but not paying their bills. What our experts and what our community advocates will speak to in more details, some of these buildings are simply over leveraged. And as far as taking off these high mortgages, as a result, try to pass those expenses off to the tenants, and then on top of that, not paying their tax lien bill, which then negatively impact our tenants, our community, and homeowners. If you are a council member, sign on to the bills legislation that will help replace the lien sale with a more just system for debt collection. I wish they had an emojis for snapping of fingers, but in this case, clap that up because that's the ultimate goal. We're not done yet. And then more importantly, join our coalition and door knocking to get your neighbors off the lien sale. You'll be surprised how empowered you would feel and your neighbors would feel to know that community is actually looking out for one another by simply knocking on that door, informing them, A, there's no need to hide. We are fully aware of this, that you're on the sale and you definitely have some help. And we're willing to provide that help. Next slide.
You can come. Where you go? I'll see you
Oh,
later.
family love. I see you, Lina.
I'll see you. I'll try to come by again on Saturday, but if not, I'll let you know. Love you.
Oh, that's what it's all about, family. You hear me? All right. And what is the Abolish the New York City Lien Sale Coalition? As I mentioned, we're a coalition of over 10 organizations across New York City, held workshops and roundtables to educate and build consensus about how to reform the lien sale. We develop a campaign to replace the lien sale altogether, held press conferences, rallies, and marches to push city council and the mayor to abolish the lien sale. We're not there yet, but I'm here to testify simply that advocacy works. Because if it wasn't for this dynamic coalition, during the height of COVID, folks would have actually would have been potentially their properties would have been taken. Folks could have potentially would have been homeless during the height of COVID. But this just demonstrates the importance of advocacy and feeling empowered to do something. So this is very, very important. Next slide. Okay. Tenants and homeowners are struggling. That's nothing new. And city policy is making it worse. Remember what I said earlier. Policy equals legislation, bills, regulations, however you want to describe it. These things modify behaviors and directing the monies. But what's happening is certain policies are negatively impacting the working class tenants and homeowners. In such a and what meanwhile profiting the billionaires and these large hedge funds. So around the city, but especially in communities of color, small homeowners are struggling to pay their municipal bills. Tenants are suffering with bad conditions and absentee landlords. There are folks that's living in some horrid conditions, suffering in silence. And that's why it's so important for us, the likes of my advocacy warrior, like Lion the Green, going out there, knocking on doors with the coalition, empowering residents. If landlords don't step up and do what they have to do, we'll take over the property. Operation Takeover is truly in effect for the working class movement. Meanwhile, empty lots sit vacant as speculators flip them for profits without building a thing. Instead of designing a system to fix these problems for the past 25 years, the city has outsourced core functions of government and distanced itself from its duties. This is even more unnerving and even make members of our coalition enraged. You won't modify the laws for communities of color to benefit us. Not only that, you decide to outsource it to another entity to profit off our misery, of our economic stress. This is what we're up against. Low income renters and homeowners, seniors, and communities of color have suffered as a result, but we're fighting back. And this here, I want everyone to take out a pen or if you have a little note. These are the numbers you must share with your neighbors, if anything. We know that tenants and homeowners are at risk. We know that the city announced it will be doing a lien sale in May 2025. We just we just think of it and say, huh, okay, this is what they normally do. But look at the amount of properties that are impacted. There are approximately 29,972 properties. Just think about that. And then you figure the average family size in each of these properties. The numbers are become more alarming and concerning. And 149,001 units on the 90-day list. Just want that to resonate for a moment. Next slide.
Good
And right
evening,
now,
everyone. Oh,
no worries. I want to turn it over to our dynamic warrior, um, doing great things in Brooklyn. Definitely want her to introduce herself real briefly and then go into the current system.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm Allison Martinez from Brooklyn Level Up. So now that we've seen there are over almost 30,000 properties who end up on the lien sale list, let's get a look at what the current system is and how it works. So the city sends bills to property owners. They could be your next door neighbor, could be a church or a nonprofit or a business. These are the properties that end up on the list. And it's for water, property taxes, or emergency repairs. And then if that property owner does not pay those bills, isn't on a payment plan for quarterly or monthly payments and doesn't make that happen, then the city sends 90, 60, and then 30-day notices to the property owner. And that telling them that the bill that they have, that is going to be sold. So that debt will be sold to a private trust. Once that happens, that trust, which is made up of private investors and developers, they will take those debts and they will sell it to other investors in the form of bonds. And typically, the city recoups about 72 cents on the dollar for the unpaid debt. That lien trust, which is full of private investors, will then basically compound the problem for these property owners by adding additional high interest and fees. So if you couldn't pay that bill, it was a struggle already with just the city calculations of the debt. Now you're adding an additional fees and high interest and the basically the panic and trauma that occurs when you have bill collectors coming to get that money. If then that property owner is still unable to make payment arrangements and stick to a plan, they default on that. And what happens is the lien trust can then start a foreclosure action. And that means the liens will still continue to accrue interest and they'll keep those that are profitable. And then those that they're not able to basically maximize on profitability, they will take to court in order to have a foreclosure action commence. And should they win that, what happens is they will then sell the property to the highest bidder. And that is how property owners end up losing their homes and equity and generational wealth gets transferred out of communities. Next slide. So,
Thank,
yeah.
thank you, Allison. So definitely the question that need to be asked is who benefits from this system? Investors in the trust, what Allison had mentioned, who make money at several points in the process, service fees through high and compounding daily interest rates, and sometimes by selling properties they foreclose on. So the beginning, the middle, and the end in regards to how they profit off the misery in our communities. The second entity is city politicians and agencies who get to deny responsibility for damages caused by the lien sale. Remember, the reason why this lien sale is even a thing is based off legislation. So it takes legislation to modify the behaviors of the investors. You start to see a pattern here. In addition to that, of course, it's the bad landlords. These are folks that these are folks who are not deterred by the lien sales and fines because they know they could sell their building for a big profit. So here it is. They get their mortgage. Then they probably say, you know what? Um, they want to simply try to pass the high rents and things of that nature off to the tenants. Tenants cannot afford it. Now it becomes a problem of them paying their own mortgage. They finance their own destruction, and we're and our community is more or less financial collateral damage. And this is a classic example of financial injustice in our community. This is what's taking place. Next slide. Who suffers as a result of this system? Homeowners who want to settle their debts but can't afford the fines and compounding interest and might lose their homes to foreclosures or decide to sell. So here it is, the financial injustice that took place from the individuals that benefit. Now that economic stress is passed on to community members such as homeowners, to tenants in buildings whose landlord is using rent to cover debts rather than to maintain the housing who might be displaced. Little things like, not even little things, heat, water, some electric, there is some things going on, and sometimes I wonder, I wonder if this is not a sometimes a coordinated or coordinated effort with some politicians as well colluding with some of the banks to try to displace our community. Another example of financial injustice. And majority of this things are happening in BIPOC communities where more and more properties, including owner-occupied homes, rentals, and vacant lots are in disrepair because of the predatory system. And then the working class people working two, three jobs, or they may have one job, or it feels like two jobs because they're working 40 plus hours a week, who need long-term affordable housing in their neighborhoods. So here it is, the financial injustices targeting homeowners, tenants, BIPOC communities, and the working class communities. This is who they are targeting. Next slide. I know this sounds awful, but why does this system exist? Long story short, it was a right-wing think tank dream, and Rudy Giuliani adopted it for New York City. They said it was necessary because the city took on so many properties due to property abandonment in the 1970s through the 1990s. And I won't bore you with the details, but there was some redlining going on. There was some other government policies that contributed to this. And even though no other city works this way, Giuliani system still operates here 29 years later. The power of legislation. That's why it matters so much for us to constantly be engaged and encouraged. And with that, I'll transfer this slide over to our dynamic Pamela, who will introduce herself and take it from here.
Hi, everyone.
Pamela?
My name's Pamela Herrera, and I'm with the Western Queens Community Land Trust as their land justice coordinator. So from everything that you've learned today, what do you all think? Like, do we need a tax lien sale? No, we don't. And we have some examples from other big cities as well. Other cities don't have tax lien sales, and almost everyone still pays their taxes. So, larger cities that never scrutinize liens are Los Angeles. They even have a better system of collecting taxes. San Francisco and Boston. And lien sales are not legal at all in 21 other states. Next slide, please. So the tax lien sale is bad and unnecessary. What should we do instead? So step one, the city should abolish the tax lien sale. Step two, establish an equitable property tax collection system with the goals of keeping tax delinquency rates low, preventing displacement, curbing speculation, improving conditions for tenants, promoting community ownership, preserving and developing affordable housing and public space. And step three, ensure that public sector workers like the DOF, HPD, and community organizations have the resources they need to secure just outcomes. And with this, I'll pass it over to Paula.
Great. So welcome to the middle of a winning campaign. We are not at the beginning and we are not at the end. We're in the hot and fecund middle of the campaign. So as I think we're all here because we heard that after a several-year hiatus that we forced the city to take, the city council did reauthorize the lien sale last year. Reauthorized it to happen starting now through December 2028. That's 4 lien sales that are allowed under the new law. We got a lot of improvements. The structure of the lien sale remains. It's an investor-backed trust that buys the liens, that tax on fees, that gets to collect the city's interest. But we got a lot of ways for folks to get out before the trust does that. And we even got some ways in for folks to get out after the trust does that. So we're chipping away, we're shrinking the lien sale. One thing that might happen is the lien sale might actually get so small that the city might not think it's worth it to have this kind of complicated third-party process. Though the way government is going, outsourcing seems to be the rage. So I'm not holding my breath. I'm just going to drop some links into the chat. We've got the city's updated lien sale page, which has its own frequently asked questions on it. I think the best portion of that page is a little bit hidden, but if you click that link and then scroll down to other information and then frequently asked questions, that is the best explanation the city's ever offered publicly for how this works and how it impacts people. The clarity is part of the outcome of this campaign, but we've also got some real substantial wins that we're going to talk about. The wins all came in kind of a hodgepodge of both legislation and a budget negotiation last year. So some of it's in the final bill, some of it's in a commitment letter that the mayor's administration wrote, and some of it actually happened through the city council budget. If folks want to really get into those, I'm going to drop those links in the chat in a moment. But Hannah, if you could go to the next slide, that would be great. I'm going to go over without going into the documents where all of these things live because they are very wonky. But I'm actually just going to go over what we won and what we're expecting to see this year. So a huge thing that we won that has never happened before is those resources that Pam was talking about at the end of her outline of how we're going to win this campaign. We've got new funding, $2 million a year in public funding for agencies and non-governmental organizations to do outreach and education, housing and legal counseling for homeowners and tenants affected by the lien sale. It's the first time ever that tenants have been part of any kind of city-sponsored conversation about how the lien sale affects them. This year, that money's going out through our partners at the Center for New York City Neighborhoods. Some of the organizations that are on the call today are getting some of that funding. We're not, maybe some of the folks who are speaking after me will talk about how that's been going in more specifics. But this is a huge boost. There's also a new city council initiative focused on estate planning and tangled title counseling. That's going to be distributed by the city council. The details are to come, but that's also going to help a lot. It's another $1 million. To aid city council members' offices in outreach, there's a list that the administration, the Department of Finance is making for the city council of properties that have tenants where people live that have been on multiple 90-day tax lien sale lists. So twice in the last 4 years. So for this year, it'll be going backwards, but that's going to remain the rule. So every year, the council offices are going to be getting lists of properties where tenants are potentially living in terrible conditions and maybe not calling 311 for whatever reason, but where their landlord is just taking their money and not paying their bills. So really highlighting that for the city council. We've gotten the Department of Finance for the first time ever to start the tax exemption and renewal and lien sale season by sending every property owner a notice that explains what property tax exemptions and abatements are actually available. Hannah, if you could go forward for a second. Thanks so much. Everybody got one of these this year. I actually think it's pretty good. It's got a nice chart on it with outline, with deadlines. There's some exemptions that don't have hard deadlines imposed by the state. These exemptions were all listed on this flyer that everybody got. It was about how to avoid the lien sale. They only got it once. If you go back for a second, Hannah, sorry, make you go back and forth, but we're still fighting for more consistent notices. The Department of Finance sends everybody a tax bill every quarter, every 3 months. There's no reason that they shouldn't include that same information that they sent everybody once this year with every mailing that they send to property owners. Department of Finance doesn't want to do it, so we are working with the city council to make law that would require them to do it. That's being sponsored by Councilman Berners. Thanks. Go forward. One more. Great. Switching gears, we've also won some protections for tenants. HPD is going to do direct outreach to tenants and buildings that have been included in at least twice in the past for 90-day lists and where the debt that the landlord owes is more than 15% of the value of the building, according to the city records. That's affirmative outreach by HPD. That's basically unprecedented. HPD will come to your building if you call 311 and report your landlord. The rest of the time, they're off doing something else. To have HPD doing affirmative inspections of buildings where the indicators are that the landlord might not be taking care of business, that's a big win. We'll see how it plays out. This is the first year they're doing that. We're still fighting for next steps for those buildings. We're still fighting for bringing back a city foreclosure program that will create opportunities for tenant ownership, for co-op conversions, that will create opportunities to replace slumlords with responsible community-based landlords. That program is not back yet. Hannah, can go forward, please? Thanks. We've also, there's a lot of things that we've won for low-income families that own their homes. So for folks who are making less than what the state calls the enhanced star limit, which this year is $107,300 a year, there's a number of new options. First of all, you can fill out a really simple form called an easy exit and have the property removed from the lien sale 3 times. You can have your lien sale surcharged refunded as long as the debt is paid off. So even if your debt is sold, but then you say, oh, no, 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 sorry, I'm late, but I'm going to pay it. As long as you do it quickly enough, the fees that the trust added, they'll get taken off your account. There's payment plans. We'll talk about more of those in a little bit. And even after the lien sale, there is now a legally mandated preservation track that's going to let folks who maybe couldn't come up with the money, who maybe couldn't get on a payment plan, still have an option to stay in their neighborhood. Working with a responsible landlord is going to be working with the city and creating a way for them to both stay in their homes and create generational continuity in those homes. For seniors and disabled homeowners, we've gotten them the chance to have their debt go back to the city after the lien sale and all the fees canceled, even if they file their forms a little bit late. You need to get your exemption application in by March. That deadline's already passed. The lien sale is in May. But if you're a senior or a disabled homeowner who should have qualified for the exemption, as long as you fill out the form by August, the lien sale is going to be reversed. Your debt's going to go back to the city. Then you'll be able to enter into a payment plan or, resolve your debt in some other way with the city, but you won't have to deal with the trust. Hannah, can you go forward? Oh, just thanks so much. But that's not enough, right? Those are some carve outs, and most of them are from folks who are making below a very specific income limit, or are seniors or disabled homeowners. We need more. We're monitoring how the city's going to actually implement the preservation track, making sure that community land trusts have a clear role, making sure that that program ends up being fair. We are fighting for the ability for exemptions to actually be retroactive. Right now, as I said, the deadline passes, and then you can't get that exemption next year. You can get the city to keep holding on to your debt. You can get out of the lien sale process, but you got to wait a whole other year to get the exemption. We need the state to pass state law to make that change, and we also need the state to pass state law so we can have rolling deadlines for individual exemptions and abatements. That's something that we already have for charity organizations. Charities don't have that hard March 15th deadline, but we need the state to extend that to our seniors, to our disabled homeowners, to our veterans, to other folks who are eligible for tax exemption. Anna, can you go forward? We want some much better communication. In addition to that notice that went to everybody about all the exemptions that are available to everybody, we've got past due notices included in quarterly bills, and we've got in law a requirement that minimum payoff notices say how much the owner needs to pay to get off the lien sale list. Those should be going out now. Old bills just used to say how much you owed, and it looked like you had to pay the whole thing to get out of the lien sale, but it's actually only a certain portion of the debt that qualifies the city to sell your lien to the investor-backed trust. So in the new notices, which are going out now, they're going to be much clearer about that, and that's going to be going forward in the regular quarterly notices from Department of Finance. What we are still fighting for even better communication. One thing that makes this process really terrible is the city starts it by publishing a big old list of every single vulnerable property. We would like them to stop doing that and replace that big list with individual recordings in ACRIS, which is where all mortgages and deeds and other debts connected to a property are recorded. People are used to checking ACRIS, which is the city register, for information about properties, information about their properties. People can actually sign up for alerts about their own property in that system. We want to be able to leverage that for municipal debt, and we want to get rid of this phone book that the city publishes for speculators every year of vulnerable owners who have debt headed to the lien sale. Can you go forward? Thanks so much. as I mentioned before, we are shrinking the lien sale, but we're still fighting to abolish it completely, but we are shrinking it. There's a few liens that are no longer eligible for the lien sale. Vacant lots that are too small to be developed, liens on those are no longer eligible. There's no longer an automatic qualification for a second lien to be sold on a 1 to 3 family home or condo or co-op. That second lien has to age and be big enough to be sold just like the first one did. And as I've mentioned, low-income homeowners have lots of options for getting out of the sale. So hopefully this year we'll see a lot fewer low-income homeowners come May 20th when the sale happens, actually having third-party liens imposed on their homes. Can you go forward? We've made some steps towards transparency and predictability. One big thing is starting this year, the tax lien trust interest rate is going to be the same as the cities. It's going to be the same as the cities at the time of the lien sale. At least, and then it will stay the same. It won't change over time. That has not been the case in years past. We also got them to post all of the trust's documents on the web. Finally, these are documents that we couldn't even get through the Freedom of Information law last year. So this is a big step. We did that through legislation, working with the council. We are still fighting for getting rid of the trust and all these complicated documents entirely, and just bringing debt collection back into the public agency. And we're fighting for transparency about the private company that runs the process for the city now. We haven't gotten that. If you go forward. Thank you. We've gotten a commitment to some improvements. At the moment, the city council and the administration are meeting as a task force to keep working on reforming or replacing the lien sale, specifically looking at more ways to improve fairness and efficacy, looking at reforms, and looking at old liens that have been in something that's sort of like the backdoor graveyard trust since Giuliani created the lien sale. We're going to see draft recommendations from that task force in about a month. I hope that we'll all be together at the public hearing that they have at the beginning of May. And then we'll have a final report from the task force by September. And we're still fighting to abolish the lien sale. And I'll turn it over, I believe, to Alice. Oh,
Sorry,
oops.
bear with me. Let me just refresh the slides really quick.
Oh, there you
Because
go.
we made
Does
one
anybody
small-
have any burning questions while Hannah refreshes? Yeah, and somebody, Julie in the chat said property tax reform is necessary too, which drags and drags. And that is an enormous point where we are really focusing on the unfairness of the debt collection process, but there's also a lot of unfairness in how much the city actually charges low-income property owners.
So
Uh,
now that we've seen what the wins have been, we have basically what is the countdown to May 20th, 25, which is the date that is scheduled for the lien sale to occur. So on February 12th, the 90-day list was released and notices went out to property owners that they would potentially have their lien sold. Approximately March 20th or so, the 60-day notices should be listed and notices go out. Approximately April 20th, that would be the date when the 30-day notices should be released and sent out. May 5th would be the day when the 10-day notices should go out. I think one of the most important dates that we want to impress upon you, besides the fact that the tax lien sale is occurring on May 20th, is that May 19th is the last day for a property owner who has received any of these notices to actually do something to get themselves off the list. So you can always go on to the that link to the nyc.gov/lien sale to see if you're on the list. You can reach out to organizations on this in the coalition, but most importantly, we have to make sure that either we or our neighbors do the things that need to be done to get off the lien sale list by May 19th. Next slide. So this is just a bird's eye view of what basically the 30,000 properties on the lien sale list look like for right now from the 90-day list. So just let that sit with you, like how many homes that is, how many churches that could be, or other properties that are, community assets that are at risk. So this is how important this work is for us to get involved as volunteers, organizers, neighbor to neighbor, just letting people know to be aware of what's going on and more importantly, take action. Next slide. And this is that list of the top 25 council districts that have properties, residential properties that are on that list. So you may see representatives like council members that you in districts that you live in. And what you want to take a look at is also that a lot of these council members are hosting or co-hosting lien sale information sessions, such as this one that you're on right now, or others with Department of Finance and other community partners to make sure that people can do what they can to support and help people get off the list. But just take a look at that and you can see where the communities tend to be, who are at the higher ranks of the list, and what that impact could be. Next slide.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rosalinda Gutierrez. I'm a foreclosure prevention counselor here at Cypress Hills. As many mentioned here at this workshop, there's many ways that homeowners can get off of this lien sale. I guess, like it says here, just don't ignore it. Once you get a letter in the mail, reach out to see how we can better assist you. There are 5 options for you. Paying your bill, getting into a repayment plan. Even though the tax exemption, the deadline was today, we could find other ways to assist you. Applying for easy exit, and if there was any emergency repair done in the property that caused this lien, we can also help you fill out those forms. Those forms are done here in the office we have 3 counselors here, and it's quick and easy. Just basic information from the homeowner, and what's really required is your income, making sure that you qualify under the income guidelines. One of the options, the easy exit, basic, have to have a one of 4 family homes. I'm sorry, 1 of 3 family homes or a condominium. It has to be your primary residence, and you have to have lived there for at least 12 consecutive months and not own any other property in New York City. And for all property owners, your annual income must be less than $107,300 to qualify for this program. As mentioned before, the property tax exemptions, they always have a deadline of March 15th. We assist homeowners to apply for these programs, senior citizens, 65 or older, disabled folks. There is no age requirement for that. But if you do qualify under the disabled or or senior citizen exemption, as mentioned here, you still have an option to apply before August 19th to get removed from the sale list. That's happening this May. We can help you with that. You call our office. We work together with Hannah. We're from Cypress Hills. We assist borrowers with these type of applications and other ways of helping them prevent displacement. This is like a little snippet of what the application looks like for the emergency repair certification. It's the basic information about the property and the borrower, as well as the information needed to submit with this application. As I mentioned before, we need to provide proof of ID just to make sure you are the person named on the deed, your proof of income, if you'd file tax returns, or if you are on Social Security benefits, that's the type of income that we submit, but it would be for 2023. They do not ask for 2024 as of yet.
So in addition to that, you could also, if you're a veteran, you could qualify for an exemption. Or if you're a nonprofit, there are also options for you to have exemptions as well. So if you don't qualify for an exemption, you can't just pay out of pocket. There are payment plan options. First, there's the standard payment plan option. This is available to all property owners, regardless of age or income. They encourage a down payment, but it's not required. It can be billed monthly or quarterly, and you can have an agreement that can last between 1 and 10 years to pay it. You have to agree and pay all the taxes and charges on time, and interest still accrues on all past due debt. If that doesn't work, you can also take advantage of what's called the Property Tax and Interest Deferral Program, which is PT Aid. There are 4 types. There is the general requirements are the same in the sense that it has to be your primary residence and you had to have lived there for at least the past year. You have to earn less than $107,300 in federal adjusted income. The property has to be a 1, 2, or 3 family property or a condo. And you have to have fallen behind or be in danger of falling behind on your property taxes, which obviously would be the case since the property is on the tax lien sale list. So you can defer for a fixed length of time or for a temporary hardship or a longer time if you have like a chronic hardship. There are options that are available to you. So there's the low income senior. This is someone who's 65 or older, and you can defer the unpaid taxes and charges either indefinitely, which means that it would be paid by your estate at the moment of your passing, or it could be for a specified period of time. Then there's the fixed term income-based program option, and that can limit your payment to a maximum of 8% of your adjusted gross income and could also include your delinquent amount or a delinquent amount plus charges that could be projected through like the next year. So that's a calculations that would have to occur. Then there's the extenuating circumstances income-based option. And this is where you would have to show that there was like a death or a serious illness of a property owner or another property owner, and that or of an immediate family member, such as a spouse, and then or loss of income. And then you have to like apply or enroll in different programs. But that's an option. And then lastly, there's the circuit breaker plan. This limits your annual payment to 10% of your adjusted gross income or $1,500, whichever is greater. And the property's assessed value, which is what you would get on your notice of property value every year, there's a line in the front page in that box that shows you the assessed value. The property has to be less than $250,000. That is not your market value. That is the assessed value. So that's where your property would fit in. And then lastly, of those payment options, there is the reduced income payment plan. And this has to be a single family home, condo, or other tax class 1 property. Same assessment of less than $250,000. Has to be your primary residence. And the total income of all property owners has to be less than $200,000. If you receive any of those exemptions, that also can help you with this reduced income payment plan. Another option, if you're on the lien sale list, not because of property taxes, but because of water, which is another reason that people end up on the lien sale list, you can contact the DEP collections unit and they will help you get a payment plan for water bills. Next slide. So now we know about the tax lien sale. What can we do about it? You can get yourself and if you're not on the list, get a neighbor off of the list, get someone you know at church off the list, anywhere that you know people who may be on the list, talk about it. Talk about what you learned here tonight and help make sure that we're helping our neighbors get off the list. You can also join the Abolish the Tax Lien, the Lien Sale Coalition. You can, if you're a member of any of the 10 organizations who are part of this coalition, you can join as a coalition member, or if you're an individual, you can join as a sponsor. You can join a door knocking event. We will be hosting them throughout the areas that we cover. And the more bodies that are out there helping to let people know what's happening, to not hide in shame, because the fact is, everyone knows it can happen to anyone. And the reality is, we have to be out there protecting one another by going door to door and letting everyone know that there is nothing about a house or a property that is private. It is on a public list. So if you are a tenant and your landlord isn't paying their bills, you can organize your building. You can call 311. You can file complaints with HPD. You are just as invested in that property being maintained as the owner is. If you're a council member, you can sign on to these bills. Or as a constituent, you can contact your council member and ask them to sign on to these bills, because these are the bills that protect the properties in our communities. So next slide, you'll get to see what that action looks like through these photos. It could be going door to door. It could be doing what I did in this one, where we were at actually a community event where in the midst of comedians and all that telling stories and doing poetry readouts, we made an announcement about the tax lien sale. There shouldn't be any place that we're not talking about this and making sure that we're getting over almost 30,000 units off of this lien sale list as we eventually work to abolish the tax lien sale. So this would be a good opportunity. If you get inspired by what you heard tonight, tell us, put your contact information in the chat with your zip code so we can make sure that you are connected with the right organization to help door knock, get the word out, get applications completed, and just let people know they're not alone. Next slide. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Questions?
Thank you. Everyone just give a virtual hand clap to the dynamic panel for providing the information. If you notice how this information was presented, we described the challenges, what sparked us to action, the hardships, the frustration, the financial injustice, and through advocacy, through door knocking, through true community partnerships with committed local elected officials, such as our council member Sandy Nurse, whose staff and her office has been vigilant in producing quality legislation for the working class communities throughout New York City, as well as in East New York on a whole, through advocacy. You heard through those efforts the wins. In addition to that, we also heard the outcomes, what we win, but at the end of the day, it takes application of the information that was presented. Share with the neighbors that you can get off the tax lien sale. It is not a secret, it's public knowledge. There's no need to suffer in silence. Do not be a target for the economic predators that use this list to instoke fear or make you paralysis of analysis to freeze you into doing either nothing and lose your property, or the other aspect of it, jumping and signing documents you should not be signing, and as a result lose your property. Because let's not ignore what's happening. Deed fraud, deed theft is happening, and they're utilizing this list to feed off the anxiety of what folks are behind. But we're saying no more, no, no, no. If you feel hurt, yell it out. Ouch, if someone step on your toe, along those lines. And I want to encourage everyone to please join the door knocking campaign. You are not going out there by yourself. You are not alone. We are empowered together when we do this in a group. Because as you can see and hear, I'm a very shy person myself. But once I'm amongst my peers, my comrades in the struggle, I feel emboldened and empowered. So I would like to see emails and zip codes in the chat stating I will dedicate a Saturday to help join the door knocking effort to prevent a family member or my neighbor or myself from being displaced. Because this is a true community briefing to demonstrate advocacy. It works. And combine that with dynamic partnership with elected officials that is for our working class communities, communities of color, even more empowering. The likes of our very own Councilmember Sandy Nurse that's in putting forth resolutions, introducing key legislation to empower our communities to fight back and push back. So I'm encouraging everyone, please put email address and zip code, join. And if you out in East New York or any Brooklyn, yes, we give out swag. We would, right? Ain't that right, Hannah? Let me see a thumbs up there from Hannah. You'll get a t-shirt from East New York CLT for sure, because you are not alone in this effort, and your neighbors will be so appreciative. Like, wow, there's someone there that's willing to help and not take advantage or take away or try to displace me. Going into that apartment building, suffering through the one of the coldest winters with no heat and water, and here it is. Someone stating it doesn't have to be this way. There is truly an outcome just by advocating for yourself. You can actually remain and empower others within your building. The homeowners who they target, which is seniors, as a result, no, we are here to assist, empowering our community. That's what this is all about. So, Han, I can't see the chat right now, but please say that there's some folks that put their email and zip code. They are not shy.
We got a
All right.
couple people. We got
Oh,
Rachel door knocking in
Canarsie.
Canarsie.
Oh, yeah. All right. All right. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Rivera. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And with that being said, I got to give a virtual hand clap to our very own Hannah Anouche. As you can see, this is where I get my shyness from, along those lines. Um, but if you could share the door knocking dates going through. Um, I also know that Council Member Banks is also a part of this effort out in East New York to join us with the door knocking to share this information to get folks off the tax lien sale. Because if you've seen the list, 1 and 2 is basically in East New York districts. So they're targeting our communities. It's so important that we step up. Advocacy works. Hannah?
Put some of these dates in the chat if people want to join us in East New York. But there's groups going out across the city. You could go out in Western Queens, join up with Allison and others at Brooklyn Level Up in Flatbush. There's groups across the city who are mobilizing around this issue.
Like I said, we are not alone.
And NYCC, forgot to mention, how could I forget? You can join up with NYCC, door knocking in Canarsie, as well as in Far Rockaway with the Real Edgemere CLT. Yeah, we're knocking on thousands of doors together.
Like I say, this is our power, our movement. You can hashtag that all day. Our power, our movement. And this is what community power looks like. And this is what a movement looks like. So give again virtual hand claps to Paula Siegel, Allison Martinez, Pamela Herrera, Hannah, as well, Rosalinda from Cypress Hills, LDC, to these dynamic presenters. But if anything, give a hand clap for yourself for being ambassadors for community empowerment along those lines. And Allison put in her number as well from our Brooklyn Level Up contact number, as well as her email. Paula put her information as there as well. our dynamic community lawyer extraordinaire. And Canarsie, I didn't forget about you because there's some members that are part of East New York CLT that live in Canarsie as well. I'm not going to forget about Canarsie. Okay. In the words of my of a wise bishop once says, as we bring this to a close, all minds and hearts are clear. Let me see a heart at least. Show some love. You can tell I got this. I was able to do the reactions. There it is. Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for everything. I'm so proud of all of us.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. And we officially bring it to a close. Are we good, Hannah? Rosalinda, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you so much. Everybody have a great night.
Good
All right.
night.
And Ryan, thank you. I see you, Ryan. Can't hide. Ryan Hickey trying to hide. We see you.
Good night, everyone. Please
Good
feel free to
night.
contact me if anybody's going out to Canarsie or East New York.
Fantastic.
okay.
Thank you, Rachel.
All right.
Have a good night.
All right, family. Till we see each other again.